Okay, so what I want to talk about this time is locking your pencil drawing onto your MDF board. Once you've done your pencil drawing, how do you get it to stay there while you paint over the top of it? I was struggling a little bit for a new subject to paint, so I just chose to give Blondie a go. I've always thought about painting her portrait. One of the things about painting a famous person, I suppose, is you can gauge how well you're doing in your portraiture, because obviously when you show somebody, if they say or recognise straight away who that is, then you're on the right track. So we'll give this a go. As you can see here, I paint from the computer screen these days. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to sit for me in person, so I just sourced a couple of photos from the web. I don't like to, in general, just straight out copy a photo exactly as it is, mostly because it just doesn't fit how I see things. So what I've done here is I've combined several photos of her facial features and hairstyles and tried to come up with my interpretation of Blondie. The good thing about computers is you can zoom in and zoom out, and so you can look at detail and step away. So back to the drawing. So once you're happy with your sketch, how do we keep the sketch on there? Because after we've done our sketch, we'll be putting on the ground layer. And if you've seen the video of the ground layer, the sketch is going to be washed off pretty quickly if we don't cement it on there. So what I do is I use a little bit of burnt sienna, or in this case burnt umber. Generally I don't use burnt umber except for this process. I find burnt umber to be little more than mud really when trying to paint portraitures, so I stay away from it, but for this it's alright. So what I do is I get my fine brush and I soak it in terps and just make sure I get a nice wash of my colour. And generally, if you're right-handed, you want to start from left to right. Start to go over my lines. So you want a fairly fine brush. And this process is going to ruin your brush because the gesso is quite abrasive on the bristles. So as we go over our pencil, it's going to take, even though it's well soaked in terps, it's going to take a good 2 or 3 days. I at least allow 3 days for it to dry fully before I go putting the ground coat on, because if you've seen the ground coat video, you're going to wash off all your work if you don't make sure that your lines are nice and dry and hard. So I'll keep going with that, and once I'm done, we'll come back and have a look at it. So we'll just maybe zoom in a little bit. Okay. Alright, so that's it. There is my drawing locked down to the gesso. As I said, I now have to wait a good 3 days for this to dry. So when you're using oils and layering, you have to be patient. You could speed up the process if you wanted to by using acrylic at this stage. But because I'm an oil painter, I just stick with oils. It's what I know, it's what I like. So 3 days and it'll be nice and dry enough anyway for me to put on the ground layer. If you want to see ground layer, I've got a little video there called ground layer which you can watch. And you can see also at this stage also thinking towards the final look of the painting. I've done some vertical stripes which kind of lend themselves to her album, Blondie's album Parallel Lines. And because her top is black, I didn't want a crossover between her top and the black of the background lines, so I've had to organize it so that it's black, white against the black, and then black here juxtaposed against the white, and then black here. I did play with some thinner lines, but it was just looking too busy, so I've just broadened it out so that there's now just the 3 main lines and the 2 on the sides, which won't interfere with her dress. So there you go, that's it, and we'll just see how it progresses. The other thing I would do now is, now that I'm leaving it 3 days to dry, I will put it away and not look at it. When I come back after those 3 days, my mind or my brain will have kind of forgotten what it looks like. So when I look at the painting or the drawing again, I'll see it with fresh eyes, and I'll be able to see if there's any glaring mistakes or errors or things that I don't like about it, and whether I really do want to progress with it. So sometimes putting the painting away for a few days is very helpful in understanding what you're doing and where you want to go with it. Actually, just one final thing of note here is I already have my frame for this painting. So I've got this at a charity shop. It's a bit knocked around, but what I'm going to do is customize it. I'm going to remove this varnish that's on it, and I'll strip that off, give it a bit of a sand, and then I will customize the frame with the white and the black, so that the frame and the painting, it's all going to work together. So that's one other thing I'm going to look at. And this frame only cost me $20 thereabouts. So it's a cheap frame really, for which requires a little bit of work, but as I say, you can customize it.